transhumanist. I can tell you because some of them are my friends, and I have had the opportunity to debate with them. And when I say friends, I don't mean that I share their worldview whatsoever, but we have, you know, cordial conversations. It's diplomatic. And I believe in the sincerity, for instance, of men like Dr. James Hughes. Dr. Hughes would never advocate for anything, I think, that he believed would be detrimental to the future of society. So much of their ideas are altruistic in the sense that they're selfless and they're perceived to be for the good of society as a whole. For instance, longevity. One of the key objectives of transhumanism is to extend our lifespans. And you have people who are either transhumanists or who are friendly to the transhuman vision, such as Aubrey de Grey, who is a member of the Methuselah Foundation, the whole commitment of which is to either through diet or even more advanced applications such as genetic engineering, learn how to do things that will bring about the end of human suffering and disease and therefore lead to longer lifespans. Learn how through genetic engineering, for instance, to perhaps turn off what is happening when tumorous cancers are growing in our bodies. So that not only do they intend to enjoy the benefits of longer life in the future as transhumans, Aubrey de Grey is saying now that if you're 50 years of age when you're watching this video, there's a very good chance you could live to be as much as 1,000 years old. With how quickly this science and technology is advancing. But the transhumans don't just want to extend life because, as you know, some people watching this might say, you know what, why would I even want to live to be 1,000 years old? I'm kind of ready to get out of here now, you know, with the way that the world is going. So the transhumanists also consider that, and it's not just a longer life, but it's a happier life. It's a healthier life where we're stronger and we've been enhanced cognitively. Through neurosciences now we're learning things about the brain. We're learning the portion of the brain that leads to depression also leads to euphoria. And if we could learn how to control those portions of the brain, we may develop natural treatments for persons so that they could be happier, so that they could escape from depression. So that would be one of their ideas. Of course, enhancing our bodies so that we're stronger. The elimination of pain. You know, right now I go out and dig a hole and within 1 hour, man, I'm ready for some cold tea and a place to throw up my feet. But these future enhanced bodies would be able to perform at levels that, you know, perhaps only 25-year-old weightlifters right now do it. And we would be talking about people who may be 150 years of age that can run for miles. Also cognitive enhancement, so that we not only eradicate diseases such as Alzheimer's, but we actually are able to modify the brain in ways where it is enhanced to be able to think at you know, teraflops faster than we can now, and also to be able to even interface with computer systems of the future, sort of like the Matrix, you know. Plug in, download, and all of a sudden I know Kung Fu. So, and these are perceived to be true benefits to humanity. We have better lives and we're better off as a result. Now, they also have some very exotic ideas about future humans and why they would be happy in particular ways. For instance, among transhumans is a segment that's called post-genderism. Post-genderism actually has grown out of the feminist side of the transhumanist movement. And as you know, feminists have been at war with their gender identities and the roles that you know, society places on them for some time. Some among the feminist movement also believe that it's a little bit unfair that, you know, they get pregnant and they're the ones that have to carry the baby and lose the shape of their body and then travail and give birth, where the man can enjoy the benefits of sex, but he doesn't have to go through this whole 9-month gestation period. So in transhumanism, there are some very exotic ideas such as post-genderism, the idea that we will be able to develop androgynous beings, morphological beings, who will take the best of what it means to be a man and the best of what it means to be a woman and actually have a new form of life that is both man and woman. who can enjoy the benefits of things such as sex, which I mentioned a moment ago, but without the burden of having to become pregnant, having to carry a child for 9 months. And so if you look into some of their ideas, you know, where do babies come from? Don't these future humans want to have genetic offspring? And they've developed ideas around how all this could be done within their science. You take genetic samples, and this isn't altogether cloning, but you take genetic samples from the contributors, man-woman A and man-woman B, or future marriages may be made up of multiple numbers. Maybe there's 18 or 20 that have entered into what we would then think of as a marriage contract. And those ones that want genetic offspring can all provide samples of their genetics. And then this is taken to a specialized pregnancy center or birthing center of the future. And through some form of super in vitro fertilization, those genetic samples are placed inside of an egg which has had its nucleus removed, which is also probably donated from one of these men-women. It is treated with chemicals or with electricity like we do with cloning now. And it jumpstarts spindle formation, cells begin to divide, and a new man-woman made up of multiple partners begins to grow and becomes an embryo. And if that sounds incredible to you, in Britain just this week, the first baby from 3 parents was born. The science has already been perfected. We're already doing it. It's not as if this is as futuristic as it may sound. We're at the beginning of the gate now, but we've come through the door. The gate is open, and we're walking through it, and we're moving that direction. And they're imagining how this science could be used in ways that in their mind is beneficial to humanity. We no longer have the burden of gender roles. Now, what do psychologists say about a baby? How a baby is bonded to its mother while it's growing up inside of its mother's womb is almost mystical. It's metaphysical. We don't understand it. A baby is born and even already knows the tone of its mother's voice. Well, transhumanists have an answer for that too. Postgenderists believe that they also take genetic samples from whichever of the men and women want to play the role of the traditional mother, and they grow a synthetic womb inside the birthing center, and it is hooked to an androidal system that also has the sound of the mother's voice recorded in it. And this androidal system can stand up, sit down, move around, make natural movements that feels very natural to the embryo that is growing up inside of it, so that by the time 9 months later, and even that is a question because these future humans may not take 9 months to gestate, but if they do, you go to the birthing center and the switch is thrown, the little baby is born, it's grown up inside its mother's womb because it was taken from her genetics and recreated in a laboratory. It has grown up listening to the sound of her voice and her heartbeat, all of which are a part of this future system. Did you know that some of the early discussions actually were around creating clones who would then be anesthetized, not even aware that they're alive, and their wombs would be used for gestating these children, and then afterward the clone, if not legally defined as a human, could be discarded. It would simply be a system for saving man-woman A from the burden of having to carry a child. But many of even within the transhumanist, philosophical community, simply couldn't tolerate that idea, and so they advanced it to growing a synthetic womb, which could then be used for the gestation period. One of the other benefits that transhumanists imagine actually borderlines on the supernatural. And this started really with Nick Bostrom, who is a leading transhumanist in the world, sits on the IEET's board under Dr. James Hughes. Nick Bostrom actually earned his prestigious seat at Oxford University by writing his thesis on transhumanist values. And thankfully for the rest of us, Dr. Bostrom has been kind enough to post his theses and other works that he has done. So anybody who would want to follow up on this could go to nickbostrom.com, pull down the website on the left side and click on Transhumanist Values and go and read his original theses, which he wrote to earn his PhD and his seat at Oxford University. It's interesting because Bostrom doesn't claim any kind of religious ideology, but he has diagrams in there that he uses when he gives his lectures at universities and also at the Transvision conferences, which are taking place every year now for about the past decade at leading law schools and universities around the world, in which the arguments are being detailed now, worked out among law scholars on how the laws and policy of our government will be extended to protect transhumans of the future and future democracy. But if you click on it and you look at some of the charts that he has created, for instance, he has one that's kind of a large rectangle. And in this rectangle, he describes this rectangle as representing all possible modes of perception, modalities, sensory modalities. Down in the left corner, he draws a small circle, and he says this circle represents humans. The limits of our perception, modes of perception, or sensory modalities, our eyesight, hearing, taste, feeling, and how far it extends into all possible modes of perception. Then around that, he draws a larger circle, and he says this is the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom not only has our level of perception, but other levels of perception. For instance, they can hear at higher decibels than we can. Dogs at 40,000 hertz, dolphins at something like 80,000 hertz. Some animals like bats can navigate using sonar. They also seem to be in touch with the earth somehow in ways that we're not. They can pick up vibrations. They'll begin to move out of particular areas when they know there's going to be an earthquake or there's going to be a volcano, and they'll begin to migrate to another area. And we're not exactly sure how they do that. They may be able to smell tumors. And if it's not smelling it, it's some other method by which sometimes they are aware that there is a tumorous cancer, something that is actually degrading your DNA. So he talks about these fascinating things, but then he says something that I think is of the most importance and borderlines the metaphysical. And that is when he points out that animals can also see into areas of the light spectrum that we cannot see into. And that is viewed in transhumanism as a future benefit, and even one of the causal reasons we would want to merge ourselves with the animal kingdom so that we can open these new modes of perception into realities that right now we are blinded to. Perhaps one of the reasons we would want to merge ourselves with animals so that we too would be able to do this. Why this is interesting to me as a Christian and as a researcher and as a scholar of biblical texts is because we know that animals can see into, at least some animals can see into, what we think of as the supernatural realm. And it isn't just extra biblical texts that seem to imply this, but even in the Bible. For instance, the story of Balaam's donkey. Balaam gets in trouble because he's prophesying against Israel, which he's been ordered, by God not to do. And so now he's on his donkey and he's going down the road. Well, the donkey can see something that Balaam cannot see. There's a large angel standing in the middle of the road with its sword drawn, and it's going to take off dumb Balaam's head. And Balaam doesn't know why the donkey keeps turning out of the way, and so he keeps kicking him to get him back on the road, and the donkey's trying to save his life. A great deal of extra biblical research has also been done that seems to show that animals sometimes are responding to something that we can't see. And in fact, probably the average person, at least at one time in their life, have saw their dog growling at something that isn't there as far as we can tell, or maybe even behaving in a way. You have a dog that's vicious, it's brave, it's not afraid of anything, and then all of a sudden a strange feeling comes over you and the dog senses it too, or the dog may even run and hide under the bed. So they seem to be reacting to something that we can't see with our eyes. And in the traditions and in the histories of the world, owls come, and owls serve with the goddess Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft. Other areas of witchcraft where cats are used as mediums through which we are communicating with the spirit world. That idea has been with humanity since forever, but what made it real to me, of course, is the depiction out of the Bible, at least in one illustration, where an animal can see something the humans cannot see. That is definitely in the back of the mind of many of these transhumanists. And they are bravely